Hello viewers, I'm Sadia Khan and you're watching YouTube channel Learn with Sadia. My topic for this video is Summary of the lesson Box and Cox written by John Madison Morton. Kindly watch the video till the end. So let us begin the story. It is a simple story which generates good farce. Here the main three characters, only three characters are there. One is Mrs. Bouncer, then we have Mr. Box and Mr. Cox. Okay, so Mrs. Bouncer is a house manager in London. So she lets a room to two different people who were of two different professions. Okay, here she gives same room to two people. The names of two people are Mr. Box and Mr. Cox. How she gives to two different people is, so Mr. Box is a printer who spent all the night at his press. So Box is spending his time in the printing press and he uses the room only during day hours. When it comes to Mr. Cox, he is a hatter. Hatter in the sense he is working in a hat shop. He spent the day at his workplace, used the room only at night. So she will notice that Box will spend only in the daytime, Cox will spend time in the room only in the night. So based on this, she will give room to both of them, but neither of them has an idea that Mrs. Bouncer was giving the room to the other. So Box and Cox are not introduced to each other. By this we can understand that the lady is very deceptive and greedy. She has given the same room to two people and she is collecting the weekly rent from both of them. So Box and Cox will be unable to realize that in their absence, uh, someone else is using the room. So initially this is the situation, but later on as the time passes, they will realize that there are some changes occurring in the room and they keep doubting. Like then starts a series of situations. Cox doubts that Mrs. Bouncer has been using the room during the daytime. He complains to Mrs. Bouncer that his coal keeps decreasing. There is a steady increase of evaporation among my candles, wood, sugar, and matches. He also complains that his room is continually full of tobacco smell. Then Mr. Cox, he is noticing some differences. He feels that might be this owner, might be Mrs. Bouncer, the landlady. She's coming in my absence and using the room. She might be using my belongings like candles, wood, sugar, and matches. But he has no idea that she has given the same room to some other person also. Mrs. Bouncer gives various excuses on this matter. See, when Cox goes to Mrs. Bouncer and asks about his belongings, about the reduction of his resources, then she will give various reasons, excuses. Cox was getting late for the work. He goes away for his work at the hat shop, and Box was returning from the night shift at the newspaper. The Box brought a rasher of bacon with him, which he prepared to cook. He lighted the fire and shows that his matches have been used and his candles burnt low. After complaining to Mrs. Bouncer, Cox will be leaving for the work, and later on the Box will be returning from night shift and he will get some bacon to cook. And when he wants to cook the bacon, he notices, when he lights up the fire, he notices that there are only few number of matchsticks and his candles are already burnt very low, means the candles are used by somebody else. So he here is Mr. Box. He also suspects Mrs. Bouncer of these actions. See, if you remember in last point I said, Cox will suspect that Mrs. Bouncer might be using the room in his absence. Same with Mr. Box. Box, when he brings bacon, he notices the reduction in matchstick and candle. He will suspect Mrs. Bouncer of these actions. But Cox was returning to the room from the work because he was 11.5 minutes late for his shop in a considerable excitement, and his employer gave him a holiday that day. Now comes a twist. See, here usually one person stays in the night, other person in the day. But here, unexpectedly, Mr. Cox, he got holiday because he was late to the work. His employer has said, you better take holiday today. So he will return to the room. So both of them are present during the daytime now. Now let us see what will happen. Box and Cox meet that day, each imaging each other to be intruder. So Box will think that Cox is an intruder, some outsider who has come into the room. So Cox will think the same, each pulling the last week's rent receipt from their pocket and each banging loudly for corrects from the landlady. Mrs. Bouncer is forced to explain the secret and she throws herself at the mercy of Box and Cox by promising to put either of them in a beautiful second floor back room, which she prepares quickly. So finally, Box and Cox will meet one day and they will start an argument. They will hit each other for a while. Initially, they won't understand that it is a mistake of Mrs. Bouncer. Then they will Box will show the receipt that look at the receipt, I have been paying the rent every week. Then Cox will also show the receipt. Then both of them will understand that they are not deceiving each other, but both of them are deceived by that landlady, Mrs. Bouncer. So they will go to Mrs. Bouncer and they will ask for an answer. So, but she will feel very ashamed, she will feel very low and bad about what she has done, and she will say that I promise to provide one more room within a short while, it is getting prepared. That will be her response. But at the end, she has to face a lot of guilt for the mistake she has done. Both Box and Cox then agreed that they had no quarrel and that the whole mess was Mrs. Bouncer's fault. Finally, they understand what is the situation. With this, the story ends. So, it is a lesson written by John Madison Morton. Hope you could understand the summary from this video. So, if it was of use to you, kindly do like, share, and comment the video, and do not forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you.